Yeah, so I had this loader. It's a 97 Cat,
Yeah.
big front end loader. And the transmission decided to screw off in it. So they pulled the pan, and we actually had some guys come from Cat to take a look at it.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, there was a bunch of metal filings inside of it. So
Yeah.
it wasn't very pretty. They changed the filter, new fluid, all that stuff. Actually got it running again, surprisingly.
Yeah.
And then they're like, yeah, you're going to need transmission.
Yeah, I was about to say that doesn't. I don't think you're going to save it with that. New
Yeah.
filter only gets so many metal shavings out of there.
Yeah. So got a new transmission for it. It's like stupid expensive for heavy equipment stuff. Yeah.
I know a couple of guys that work down in the mine, and they're telling me some of the price tags on what they're working on. I mean, like they're working on monsters down there, but
Yeah.
Jesus, 6-figure bills on some of these things, and you're like,
Yeah.
like I like my $5,000 transmission.
Exactly.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
can deal
man.
with that.
Yeah. So we this thing showed up. It weighs 1,700 pounds.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Super heavy. And I started on it yesterday with 2 other guys, and yeah, we almost have it out now. There's so many hydraulic lines, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. 2 days with 3 guys, eh?
Yeah.
That's different. That's a whole new world, eh? I've never
It
done
is.
anything like that. I mean, like a little bit on the agriculture front, just at home,
Yeah.
but nothing like that, eh? Like, what are you using to get it out?
Forklift. We have 2 forklifts. One's just like your regular forklift that you've seen before.
Yeah.
And then we've got another one. It's I forget the name of it. I think a Heister.
Yeah.
It's a great big forklift. It
Yeah.
actually came from the mine.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, I forget what the lifting capacity is on it, but it's pretty wicked.
Yeah. No problem to get the transmission out with it, eh?
Yeah, we actually lift the whole like loader up, just like move it around and stuff. It'll lift like pretty much anything.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah, man.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
How long you been doing that? Like, how long you been out there?
I've been there for I guess just over a year.
Just over.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, man.
Did you get into heavy equipment, like even with Dodge? I mean, like, because you were there for a while. I know you guys got some bigger stuff, but did you get anything like that before?
Nothing too crazy. I think we had like, those older F550s, I think they are.
Yeah.
Huronia has that white one.
Yeah.
I got to work on that thing, but
Yeah.
nothing like super heavy duty.
Yeah.
Just more exotic stuff.
Yeah. There was a lot of that. Eh?
Yeah, got to like lots of Ferraris and a McLaren and Rolls Royce and
That's
a bunch of cool stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was interesting because you're always like, some of those things Pro Demand doesn't have repair manual instructions for.
Yeah, like Rolls Royce. I can't
Yeah.
imagine that they're too forthcoming with their information.
No.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, you call them up and they're like, you can bring it here if you want it fixed. And you're like, mm-hmm.
Now, aren't they legally obligated to give that stuff over to Pro Demand?
I'm pretty sure. Like
you
I
would
don't
think.
know. Yeah, I don't know why Pro Demand doesn't have that information
Right.
available, and it must have something to do with the manufacturer.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird. You think with the right to repair law and all that stuff, they should fork it over. And for the money that you're paying for the software.
I mean, like, yeah, but I mean, like, if you have the kind of money that Rolls Royce has, I suppose you can tie things up legally pretty
True.
quick too, right? I mean, like, who
Yeah.
knows? They could just have that tied up in the courts, or who knows? Maybe they just paid the right people.
Yeah, exactly.
You would think, right?
Bring your mic a little bit closer.
How's that?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I don't know why they don't have it, but I know, we had to get, there's 2 different versions of Pro Demand. So you got light car and truck, but then you also get heavy duty.
Okay.
So I called in to get the heavy duty stuff when I started working over at the shop, and they were like, yeah, it's $300 a month.
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the
It's not cheap,
subscription. Yeah. And it's crazy between the car and the truck industry. Like if you worked on trucks for like a couple weeks, you'd be like, wow, the truck industry is 10 years behind in everything.
I've heard that before. I had a friend, God rest his soul, he was in a car accident, but he switched from automotive. We were doing our apprenticeship together. He started a couple years after we did, and he ended up switching like a couple years after I left that shop. He ended up switching over to the truck industry, and he goes, no, he says it's mechanical work, right? Like you're like, as far as technology goes, it's all behind, it's all simple, it's all
Yeah.
And I had heard that, and that's actually kind of
Yeah.
mind-blowing, but
The first truck that I had to work on, there was a electrical issue with one of the lights,
Yeah.
and it was a short circuit.
Yeah.
So I get looking into the wiring harness, and it's literally a bundle of wires that's 2 inches around, and it's all white wires. They use all the same color for any of the stuff that runs along the frame.
that is nightmare stuff.
Yeah,
That's
man.
nightmare stuff. You're like, Oh, that's awful.
They have like this water-based ink that they print like a digit on, like
Yeah.
a couple numbers for that circuit.
Yeah.
So that's the identification for the wiring. But the problem is you get moisture inside the harness and it just like wipes off.
Gone.
So as soon as you go to unwrap the harness and disturb it, you're like, oh God, please let there be a number on there. So
that's awful. That's nightmare level stuff. That's the kind of thing that, like, when I find something like that, I'm cursing somebody for having done it that way.
Damn engineers.
Yeah. Like, who was here before me because they're gonna die?
Yep.
Because there wasn't an engineer on the automotive. There wasn't an engineer that had all the same color. Somebody else did that. You know what I mean? They had a bunch of white wire or a bunch of black wire or whatever, and they were like, "Yeah, this will be fine. Whatever. Don't worry about it."
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's
Yeah.
awful. That's awful.
Yeah, man. So I haven't really got into a lot of like the mechanical side of working on transports and stuff like that. Just mostly like electrical and diag lights that would come on.
Yeah.
So mostly all the time, I would say we get emissions issues.
Yeah.
That's like 9 out of 10 times. It's always emissions related.
How strict are they on that legally?
Very strict.
Very strict,
Yeah. So the ministry in Ontario, like they patrol the areas, and you'll notice when you're on the highway, they have like pullover stations where you got to get an inspection done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they check all that stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's crazy. They just like they're waiting for guys to just hand out fines.
Yeah. That's exhausting.
Yeah, it is. It sucks.
It makes sense though, I suppose, especially with the transport industry, right?
Yeah,
It's
man.
a big industry, especially around here, right? So
Yeah, we had a truck that was going into D-rate because the filter was starting to degrade.
Yeah.
So it was limited to 5 kilometers an hour, and the filters for the SCR and the DPF filter was $10,000. Yeah,
and limited to 5 kilometers an hour.
Yeah.
And did he get stuck out somewhere?
Well, luckily, so there's like a countdown that basically warns you, like, hey, it's gonna derate to the speed at this amount after this amount of kilometers, and he made it back to the shop. So yeah, he didn't have much to spare. I think he had like 24 kilometers left to go or something like that. But
I should do that on oil changes just for automotive, eh? Like, hey, you got 500 kilometers before we cripple your car.
No kidding, man. Hey, it would save a lot of engines.
We had one today, 20,000 kilometers overdue and a full year late.
Really?
Yeah, come right up on the dash. It was just shy of 20,000. It was like 18,000 and 346 days overdue. We pulled a half liter out of it.
That sucks.
Yeah, the guy that got it was just like, he took the drain plug out, nothing on the drain plug. He's like, I'm just curious. And he caught the oil and we pulled a half liter out of it.
That's crazy,
I can't
man.
believe the car's still running.
Yep.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I seen a RAV4 that was like that. Same thing. Got like a teacup of oil out of it. And they brought it in because they were complaining it was stalling at stop signs.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, no kidding.
It's like, yeah. Now, it was one of those engines that burned oil. Toyota had those 2.4 liter
yeah.
4 cylinders. They're bad ring design.
Yeah. You know what? They all got that same problem because Hyundai's got the 1.6 turbo. That was this one. They burn oil. Any of the Honda V6s and that, what was that range? It's like the early 2000s to the mid-teens kind of thing.
Yeah.
They were all doing it too. We were re-ringing those all the time.
Really?
Hyundai just throws short blocks in them.
Right.
Yeah. Oil consumption, new short block.
I was meaning to ask you, which engines are the ones that go bad? Like I've seen a few 2 liters come into the shop, and they just all of a sudden either go or they're burning oil like crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty well any other 4 cylinders. I mean, the V6s, I've only ever seen one V6 have an issue, and that person was going a year or 2 between all changes.
Right.
And that was their problem. They did that, right? That's their issue, not the cars. But the 4 cylinders, Hyundai 4 cylinders. And just before I trash Hyundai, because,
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Just speaking the truth.
They seem to be fine with regular maintenance. I've very rarely seen any of our customers that, if you come to Hyundai and you do your oil change and blah, 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 and I'm not trying to be the company guy, right? But if you keep up with your maintenance from Hyundai with the Hyundai filters, we never see those engines come back. Like those engines never go. But almost always, I'd say 99 out of 100 of them, you see aftermarket filters on.
Really?
Go figure.
All the ones that fail.
All the ones that fail. Almost
That's crazy.
Always. Like I could probably count, if I really wanted to think about it, I'd probably count on one hand how many we've replaced with Hyundai filters on.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's always, and I don't know why. I couldn't tell you. They say it's about flow, but they don't even tell you if it's too much flow or not enough flow. They don't even mention it. They're like, improper flow, and that's why the engine's
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to get technical with it and get the gauges out or something. And
I'd like to know at the very least, and you can't tell me that they don't know, right? And,
Right.
yeah. Somebody there is smart enough to figure that out. So.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
But
yeah, you guys do, obviously you've been doing a lot of those short blocks.
Fewer of the short blocks. The short blocks are for oil burning. Long blocks, if it's knocking or banging or if there's any sort of debris in there, we do a lot more long blocks than short blocks. It's usually any of the 4-cylinder Santa Fe's, some of the Sonatas, Elantras, and Tucsons, and then but like the Tucsons and the Elantras are the oil, like the engine oil is burning, and that's the 1.6 liters more often than not with the turbos.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get them with short blocks, but a lot of people just run them right into the ground. You know what I mean? They're like, oh yeah. Like it was out of oil and I just kept driving.
Exactly.
And then they seize up or whatever, and then we get long blocks. And another thing about Hyundai that I've actually, I don't know if I enjoy it because it's hard on my pocketbook, but they warranty those things like crazy. They don't even ask questions. They're just like, oh, does it have this code? And you're like, yep. And they're like, okay, here you go.
Right. I actually had a guy that phoned in a couple months ago and he was saying that his was burning oil. Yeah. He had just bought the car from a used dealer. Yeah. He says burning oil like crazy. He wanted me to actually tear it down and rebuild it. And I said, well, is it still under warranty? The car is fairly new. Yeah. So it was under warranty. Yeah. And I said, you know what, to be honest, I would just drive it until it runs out of oil and get a new engine.
Let's just seize it and then just bring it in. Yeah. You know what? You probably don't even have to seize it. You come in for the oil consumption. We do that first oil change. Yeah. Then you come in every 1,000 kilometers kind of thing. And, ups, down, new engine.
Right.
It's that.
He said he did have it in at a dealer in the city. And they were just being a stickler about it.
Yeah, they are because they don't want to do them, right?
Right.
The customer paid on like the Santa Fe non-turbo, right? So like the 2.4 non-turbo. The customer pays like 18 hours. Right? Okay. If it's a customer paid engine, which we never do. They're always warranty. Right. The warranty paid is just shy of 8 hours. It's like 7.8 hours.
That's crazy. It's less than half.
So why would any mechanic want to call your engine, right? I mean, like I just finished one of those today. I just finished one this morning. I started it yesterday and I was like 10 and a half hours on it. Now I get pulled away. We got some apprentices that have questions and,
Right.
So I could probably do it a little bit quicker than that. Not much, you know what I mean? Like to get it done in 8, you're doing pretty good, right? Some of these guys that do them nonstop, they can do them in like 6. I don't do them nonstop. Yeah. But I ain't doing it, like if it was 18 hours, I'm laughing, but at 7.8 hours or whatever they pay.
It's crazy, man. Like some of these warranty times, I feel like they're just trimming them back every year.
Brutal.
Every time they bring a new car out, it's like the warranty times are just cut back. It's wild.
It's brutal. And then that's the one thing I don't like about Hyundai warranty is they warranty everything. I mean, like we've had cars outside of warranty that they're just like, oh, do they, they have a service history? And you're like, yeah, but it's all from like Jiffy Lube. They're like, that's cool.
That sucks.
Warranted.
For you, it sucks. It's great for the customer.
Great for the customer.
Yeah.
And you got to give them a little bit of credit because at least they'll stand behind it a little bit. But man, you could pay a little bit better if you're going for warranty time, right? Like,
yeah, it really burns the guy that's working on it because those times that get cut back comes directly off your paycheck, right?
So I'm flat rate, right? I got a small guarantee, right? But I'm always over the guarantee. Yeah, but not necessarily making good hours when I could be.
Right, exactly.
Like if it was customer paid, I do engines all day, every day. If you wanted to at customer pay, but
man,
on the warranty ones, and that's when you get with the guys in the city. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but like you got more cars, that means you got more engines coming in. That means that, you're getting screwed more often, right? So eventually you start getting bitter and you just start pushing it off. Yeah. We get cars coming from Owen Sound, guys that are sitting there going like, hey, like, Owen Sound Hyundai says that they can't look at this for like 6 months. Can you guys fit it in? And we're like, sure. And they will tow their car from Owen Sound to our shop. Wow. Well, we're smaller, slower, right? Yep. Have more time to check these things out, and we get them warranted, and 3 weeks later they got an engine, but Owen Sound doesn't even want to look at it for 6 months because they've got 200 sitting in the back lot that they can't get to because nobody wants to do them, right? So
that's crazy.
And I don't blame guys. I don't blame guys for not wanting to do those. Yeah. Not at that pay, right?
I remember working for Toyota when they had the frame recalls first come out on the Tacomas.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And they paid really well. They were 60 hours to do the frame, R&R. And then guys were getting so good at them that they actually cut the times back to 40 hours. Yeah. And, guys were getting really upset about that.
Well, it's as soon as you start doing good, they just take it out from underneath you, right? And what about the guys that aren't doing so good at them?
Yeah, and then they really lose their shirt.
Yeah, right. Now, why would you want to do it all of a sudden, right? Like, it's like if I'm going to do it and you're just not going to pay me the time I've got into it, I don't want to do it anymore, right? And then they wonder
Right.
why they can't find good techs and why techs are bitter and all this other stuff.
Exactly.
It's like, come on, guys.
I remember when I first started, actually it was a few years in, but I was doing these secondary air injection pumps on the Tundra.
Yeah.
And they were a bit of a pain to get to. And the truck was actually over the kilometer period for warranty, and it was going to be customer pay.
Yeah.
So I managed to get it done. I did a really good time. I sort of was able to cheat because I could get my hands into certain spots.
Yeah. So yeah.
And then they ended up sort of goodwilling it, and I got burned out of a bunch of time. And man, was I upset.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, especially when you think that you're going to come out on top, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
that's kind of the whole thing. Is you got the work ethic, and you go and you try to find ways to I don't want to say cut corners, but to do the job in less time than what it pays, but without cutting corners, kind of thing. And that's not
Exactly.
an easy feat. You know what I mean? Like you have to be smart. You have to be creative to get around some of these things, right? That they want you to do it this, and this, and you think, hey, if I just like unbolted this,
Yeah.
all that, I could just go around that, right? And just get
Exactly.
right to the problem. But man, if the engineers didn't think of it and I did, why am I getting hurt for this, right? Like it's not
Exactly.
my problem, but
That's one of those things with guys, like as a technician, you develop this creativity to think outside of the box and be able to cut corners.
Absolutely.
And there's certain instances where like, you shouldn't do it, or, like this is super smart.
yeah. There's definitely those times where cutting corners is just not the option, right?
Yeah.
But often if you can find a safer way to do things, a safe way to do things quicker, why wouldn't you, right?
Yeah.
But then as soon as you do that, they cut the times.
Yeah.
They slash it right out from underneath you.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I
You're
remember
getting my blood pressure up over here.
yeah, man. Gets you worked up for sure. Yeah. It really sucks, like flat rate. I know the feeling because I did flat rate for a few years.
No.
And especially if you got like a bonus system tied into that too, and like you're trying to hit those hours and they just take it away from you.
And then you miss it by that much because they cut hours. Yeah, I know. And where I'm at now, they treat me really good. I got an apprentice that works directly with me, and I get to use him to make me some hours too.
Nice.
Which is kind of nice. Like they've treated me really good. It's hard to find guys. They don't want to piss anybody off. They don't want to lose anybody. So
For sure.
they make it work, and they've been really good at it. He's off at school right now, so
Right.
It's like the next 2 months, I'm just gonna watch this little dip in my paycheck.
Yeah, school's starting up. Everybody seems to be going off now.
Yeah. Well, you know him. It's Kylan is the guy that works right with me. He's doing fantastic these days. He's come a long way.
I'm glad to see that he's gone into the automotive industry.
Yeah, well, then not many people want to, right? I tried to talk him out of it. He won't listen to me. Completely disregarded what I told him. He's just like, no, ignoring that. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. I won't try again. You know what I mean? Like, but there are better things out there. You could just
For sure.
But no, he loves it. He loves it. Right?
Nice.
It's hard to find guys that want to do it, right? And
Oh, yeah.
the ones that you find that do want to do it, when they get into it and they realize what it's going on, right? Like we were talking earlier, just before we started this up, you gotta love the chaos because
For sure.
it's chaotic, right? Like especially you get into busy season, and man, you really gotta just let things roll off your back a little bit, or else you're not gonna make it. A lot of guys don't.
I know you don't have smooth days every day. There's going to be those ups and downs.
Yeah, you break one bolt, right?
For sure. And I kind of honestly, like as much as like going into a crappy situation like that where like you break a bolt or whatever, I kind of like those challenges. And I find they keep me sharp.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just really love that each day is something different.
Yeah.
You're not doing the same thing day in and day out.
You can do anything in this trade, right? I mean, you're talking about plumbing, HVAC, electrical, mechanical, machining. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you really go in every day not really knowing what's going on, and then the industry changes so much. I mean, again, with Hyundais, they've gone so far with hybrids and EVs. Like I've done more EV work in the last 6 months than I have in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Because it's coming around and it's starting to get there, and now some of these EVs are starting to have a few miles on them, and things are going wrong. It's just regular wear and tear items or some of the warranty things.
Yeah.
I've never really had to deal with this stuff before, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, here's all this EV work, and you're like, oh, well, now we got to learn how to do this. And it's right. It's a totally different experience. Like the things are just not the same anymore, and that is nice. I do agree with you. That is nice, where you're not just running wires all day, or you're not just you're not doing the same thing every day. It's nice.
Yeah. So I've really found that after working in the shop for so long, would you agree that the rule of 3 is a thing in the shop?
Mm-hmm. When it rains, it pours.
Yeah.
You haven't done brake lines in 6 months, and then you do one set, and next thing you know, all week, all you see is brake lines.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's crazy how that happens.
Yeah, it is. It's really weird.
Yeah.
It is really weird. Anyway, brake lines is always my example because I'll go months without seeing brake lines, and the next thing you know, you get 3 jobs in a week. I don't know about rule of 3. I'll accept the rule of 3 because I've never counted it, but I noticed that you'll see it once.
It's at least twice.
It's at least twice, 2 to 5. Let's say 2 to 5. We'll call it rule of 3 just because that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah.
But it's 100% true every time.
Yeah.
Every time. I'm trying to think of the last time I had that example, but I can't think of one. But there is for sure.
And it's weird how sometimes it's so specific, like you say, brake lines. And I've had something where, you have 2 short circuits and they're both behind the dash in a bad spot to get to. And it's like, what are the odds of this? I haven't done one of these in like 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
Right?
And now all of a sudden it's boom, boom, right? And the same week, you'll like you finished this one, you did like 2 other jobs, like like you had a brake service and like a training service, and then the same job comes back and you're like, where did you come from? Like, that's not okay. I didn't like this the first time.
Yeah. And it's like, it's coming too. Because you'll get one of these jobs and you're like, oh, when's the next one going to hit?
You can feel it. You can just feel it. It's coming. I agree 100%. I've been saying that for years. Guys think I'm crazy. Some guys think I'm crazy. Some people agree completely though, but I'm behind you on that one fully.
Yeah. Yeah. I just changed a Caravan transmission.
Yep.
They fail quite commonly.
Yep.
And so I did one, it was last week sometime, but the next day I had a Caravan come in for a safety and I took it for a drive and the transmission was just shifting like a bag of rocks. So I'm like, told the guy, yeah, don't be surprised if it needs a transmission in a couple months.
Yeah. Like, you're coming back. Don't worry about it. You're coming back. Yeah, that's funny. I haven't had to deal with too many of those, but knock on wood, I guess. I don't want to deal with an old transmission out of a Caravan. That doesn't sound very fun to me.
No. Yeah, they're not so bad once you do a couple of them, but yeah, the first time around's always like, how's this going to go?
Yeah. I just don't want to work on old Caravans anymore. Speaking of which, how are you enjoying the aftermarket? Because you went dealership pretty well the whole time, right?
I did. So I was at Toyota for 10 years and then I went to Chrysler for 3.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm at that point where you get really good at working on stuff that I just really don't have any issues with working on all makes and models.
Yeah.
And Toyota and Chrysler were both like, we serviced all makes and models anyways. But obviously you're more subject to the make of those vehicles being Toyota or Chrysler.
Yeah. More
so you get really good at them.
Right?
But no, I really like just the variety of stuff. I like some of the high end stuff. Like I'll get BMWs and whatever. But then
you can have them.
Yeah, it's so I was like thinking like that when I first started. But then once you sort of get comfortable with them and whatever, and especially now that I work hourly, I've gone back to hourly.
That's nice.
And
you just don't worry about it now. Right?
Yeah, I just take my time and I learn, and I've really been honing into my craftsmanship skills and trying to get really good.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I do find now that I'm working at an independent. I need to get more tools because you're constantly running into situations where, you've been comfortable working on Hondas or Hyundais for so long.
I can tear down a Hyundai engine with a 8, 10, 12, 14, 17. You need a 19 mil wrench and a 22 mil socket. And I can have that thing out of the car and then back into the car with just those tools. A couple of extensions.
Crazy.
Yeah. That's it. That's all you need. I got it all figured out.
And then you go to work on a Volkswagen and you're like, I need a full torque set. I need Allen keys. I need security sockets. I need,
I've got them because I started in the aftermarket. I started in an independent shop at Eastside Auto.
Right. I forgot about that.
I was there for like 3 years. And I still have those Volkswagen tools, and they sit in my toolbox for that one that comes in every once in a while. The only problem is the guys have now figured out that I have them. So when a Volkswagen comes in, it's just mine now. And
no! I thought you were gonna say they come to borrow all your tools.
Nope, they just send it over to me. They're like, "Oh, driver's got those tools." Just send the work order over. You're like, "Oh man, I gotta just get rid of them." I'll put them in like a community toolbox. I don't even want them anymore. Yeah. I found I enjoyed working in the independent for a long time until I got into a dealership, and I actually enjoy the dealership. I enjoy knowing what I want to know about my brand, right?
Absolutely. You get really comfortable with.
And I just, I don't know. I enjoy having that that experience with this brand, and then that way when people come to me with questions, I'm not sitting there going like, It's nice to be able to just get into it, right? You've seen these problems or you've seen similar problems, and you know what to do and you know how to handle it, and I've been enjoying it. I like that, and it's pretty well why I've stuck to it for 8 years. I've been in dealerships now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, something like that.
What's your most recent tool purchase?
Oh, what did I just get? I just got 14 mil impact swivel extension. So it's about, what would it be, about 8 inches with a shallow swivel 14 mil, and it's all in impact.
Okay.
And I have it for engines.
Yep. And you bought it for a specific purpose.
Well, I had the 10 and the 12 at Honda.
Yep.
But I need the 14 for Hyundai.
And is that a snap-on tool?
Snap-on tool.
Nice.
Yeah, and they're nice, especially with the impact, because you're not worrying about your swivel exploding. It's only a 2-piece impact. There's nothing, or a 2-piece swivel. Like, it's really not fancy, and it doesn't have the, like, you can't turn it 90 degrees. You can only turn it, maybe,
you're not going to eat it in the teeth when it slips
off.
off.
Slips off. You know what I mean? Like, you can only turn about 30 degrees, and it's just, they're nice. And then, taking the intake off, taking the exhaust off, taking off the. You can almost take off all the pulleys off of one big bracket, right? So the AC compressor, the alternator, tensioner pulley, and there's an idler all on one big bracket, and you can just right off with these two, with the 14 mil. I need the 14 mil. You know what I mean? So
that's your go-to.
That's the go-to, right?
That was like Toyota. Bolts. It was the same thing. It's like you get into brake caliper bolts or a 14 mil. Yeah, everyth's it's either 12 or 14.
Yeah. They got you get the odd 8 and 10 for anything like, harness bolts, under shields, stuff like that. But then it's 12, 14, 17, right? 21 mil for the lug nuts and 22 for the crankshaft pulley. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's you could just tear the car down.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of snap-on tools, or have you like branched out to get other brands?
So I gone 90% snap-on, mostly because it's, obviously no one's going to argue that it's a great brand, right? It's expensive. Warranty's good. But I've gone that way because the dealer has been really consistent in this area. That's pretty much the only reason I've stuck with them. Yeah, almost exclusively. Like how about you? Yeah,
I have a lot of snap-on stuff. I've just been branching off, buying some different things. I find a lot of the electronics from Snap-on haven't really held up to their standards, in my opinion. I have their digital multimeter. Yeah. I really like that piece of equipment.
The Cat 4 one. I got the same one. It's a nice multimeter.
Yeah, for sure. But some of their other stuff, I feel like it's sort of cheap. Some of their lights. I bought that 3-bank set that comes with the 3 lights. Yeah. I've had one that only lasted a month and it's died. Oh. I did buy their underhood light. It's a solid piece.
I have that one too. It's nice. I got the older school one that comes with the separate battery though.
Okay.
And I don't mind it so much. I didn't want to have to plug it in and remember to plug it in all the time. So I got like 4 of those batteries, and there's always one on the charger. So
nice.
You just swap it out. But
that light ended up dying. It just didn't turn on one day. Oh, but the light still comes on. So, getting it covered under warranty, obviously.
Yeah, but still, you just don't want to deal with it, right? Mine. So again, I got the older school one. I actually requested it because I wanted it to have the batteries that I can just
take it in, take it out.
And it's been going on 18 months, and I haven't even had it flicker, unless the battery's on or whatever. But I was using it today, right? Like it's been working so far.
Yep.
My biggest problem right now is I got their electric die grinder.
Okay.
The one it's yay long, and I mean, like it's great and I love it, but if you put too much pressure on it, it just cuts out. And if it starts to overheat, so if you're doing a lot of grinding, it just cuts out. Kills batteries like crazy. It just chews through them. That'd be my biggest complaint about them right now.
Yeah.
It's a good tool, and I keep my pneumatic one just in case, but
yeah, I haven't switched over to the battery stuff yet. I still have a lot of pneumatic. The only things, everybody's bugging me to switch over, but I'm just like, it's a lot of money.
The only time I pull out an air hose and trip over an air hose, the only time is to top up tires.
Okay.
And it's just in there all the time. Yeah. And I just wheel it out.
True. You can just leave it in.
And then I just launch it back into the reel, and I just send it.
Yeah.
And it is awesome. The battery impacts are fantastic. The die grinder, like I said, it leaves a bit to be desired. The battery ratchets.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know how I ever lived without it. Air ratchets, like the pneumatic ratchets, were such a pain because you had the chuck and then the air hose, and you're trying to line it up and so I never used my pneumatic ones. I don't know how I lived without it.
Right.
Oh, even just trying that one.
Yeah. Oh, I should give it a try.
Yeah. They're fantastic. It's just the convenience, and you're going to use it. You're going to get your money out of it. Yeah. I don't know how much you got into air tools, and the resale value isn't always great, but it was worth it for me.
Right. Yeah. I also recently, I guess it would be the last 6 months or so, I bought a oscilloscope. Yeah. And it's from a Chinese company called Mixig. Yeah. And it's a tablet oscilloscope. So it's nice. It's got everything's built into a tablet. You just plug your leads in,
Yeah.
and away you go. The software is not too bad on it, but I wish I would have been able to use it for a little while before.
Yeah. Get to know it first.
Yeah, it's fairly priced. I think it costs like $1,300,
Yeah.
which is not bad for that oscilloscope and the capabilities of it.
Yeah.
But I watch a lot of Scanner Danner, and he uses Snap-on scope and or Pico scope.
Yeah.
Yeah, they seem just so much nicer.
Yeah. I didn't get into scopes as much as I should have, and will probably need to.
Yeah.
I've managed to get this far without them.
Yep.
And I don't want to get into it. It just seems like a whole other thing to start getting into.
There's
right
a
now.
lot of learning
There's
involved.
a lot involved with that. And I mean, like, I know guys that can tell you that the waveform's wrong just by like just a quick glance. They're like, nope, that's wrong. And you're like, wow, that was crazy. How did you learn that? And they're like, I just did it a bunch of times. You're like,
yeah, you're like, I'm not really ready to dedicate 500 hours into learning this.
Into learning this, right? Like countless hours for some of these guys. And they're just like, I just do it every day, like all day, every day. And I'm like, how did it go at the start? And they're like, not good.
Well, that's sort of what happened to me. I mean, when we worked at Toyota, we had the Pico scope, and that was just an SST that was sent out from Toyota. Yeah. So I started playing around with that a bit, but I like really didn't understand it, and I sort of dropped it. Yeah. But then now that I purchased this oscilloscope and playing around with it, we have just a couple beater cars at work. Yeah. So I was able to like short out circuits and see what happens to this and do different things.
Yeah, and that's how guys learn this. But like, that's a lot of hours.
I've put in a lot of hours. Yeah.
And I mean, like, I should, and I know I should. I'm just not ready yet. I mean, like, I'm just getting, like, they've been just pounding hybrid training and EV training into me right now. And then, you know, we just had a daughter, and I'm just not.
For sure.
Wanting to put the time
and honestly, like, when you can get away with not using it for so many things. Yeah. There's only a handful of times where you're like, I really wish I could hook up an oscilloscope and watch what's happening.
Yeah. Now, and we have the Hyundai tablets, and it's they have an oscilloscope on them. Don't ask me how good it is, because I don't really use it. Yeah. The foreman is really good at it. So the odd time where you're like, I can't figure this out, I need to see this. Yeah. I just, hey Joel, can you come take a look at this? Yeah. You know, but it's not. Man, I could probably count on one hand how many times I've, you know,
actually to bust it out.
Needed it, right? Like maybe 3 times where I've actually been like, I can't figure this out, and I don't know. Yeah. I don't know where to go from here. Yeah. But 3 times in you know, say 7 years or 8 years, that's enough, really. You know what I mean? Like, what else do you do if you don't have somebody who knows how to do it? Like, what else do you do?
That's the thing. It kind of sucks when you're like, that's like your only option, but you
to go bug somebody. Like, it's not a good option.
Yeah,
it's not a good option, and I don't like using it, and it's one that I try to avoid as much as possible. But yeah, like I said, I just haven't dedicated the time to it. I just don't want to. Yep, not right now. Anyways, I'll have to, and you know I'll have to. Right? It's the way the trade's going. It's
eventually.
So technical.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like the amount of electronics and modules, and like I scanned a BMW a couple months ago, and it had like 85 modules in it. It took forever to scan.
Oh yeah. It's absolutely insanity. You do all DTC scans, and you're sitting. And you might as well just go away. You know, go make a coffee, go to take a bathroom break, and come back, because it'll still be loading when you're done. I know, it's crazy. I was telling a customer the other day, because they had a rear end collision, and their rear hatch, it would open every way, right? So off of the key fob, off the button on the dash, off the button in the tailgate. You could use the button that was inside the tailgate to close it, and you could stop it and then reopen it with that tailgate. And you could close it with the button that was on the outside of the tailgate, but you couldn't close it with the key fob or with the dash button. Right. And now this guy was actually, because I needed more time and he didn't have the time, so he was actually booked in for this Monday, but never came back. So what happened there, I'm not sure. But I scanned it, not a single code. And when I was going through data list, and it sees everything, right? So if I hit the key fob button, it sees it, but it just won't close it. It'll open it, but it just won't close it. And same thing with the dash button. It sees you hit it. You can, right on the data list. You're like, oh, there it is. Yep. Hit the button, on, off. Nothing. Right. And so he's asking, so because I need more time, and he didn't have the time to give. So he was going to come back, and I was talking to him, and he's going, so like what's going on? I said, well, like, I see your problem, and you see your problem. So but your car doesn't see your problem. He kind of looked at me like, it's a tailgate. What do you mean the car doesn't see it? And I said, you got 2 modules and 4 buttons that work just your tailgate. Right. And that's not even all the information it gives you, right? Like, it still sees the PTGs, and it still sees, you know, pinch sensors and all this other stuff. Yeah. And I said, that's just to open and close your tailgate. 2 modules and 4 buttons. And it's, as far as the car's concerned, they're all fine. And he's just like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's just your tailgate. You remember when it used to just be like a latch?
Yeah, man, exactly.
That wasn't that long ago. That was just a few years ago.
Yeah.
It was just a latch with a mechanical lever in there, and away you went. And now it is all computerized, all modules, all electronic. There's no mechanical. Well, there is a mechanical latch in there for safety features, but I mean, you don't use it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just there for safety. But
That trunk latch reminded me of a story. When I first started working at Chrysler, we had this Chrysler Crossfire come in for a battery drain.
Yeah.
That was just the thing that happens to every Crossfire. And I found out that the trunk light was staying on.
Yeah.
So I looked into it, and I'm like, well, maybe they're switching the latch isn't working or something, right? So it thinks that the trunk's open all the time.
Yeah.
And I go to look at the connector and the wiring and stuff, and the wiring wasn't matching up with what was on the diagram, and there was extra pins in the connector that was on the diagram, and I'm like, do I have the right model? Do I have this and that? And couldn't figure it out, so I called Techline, and I get talking to a guy, and he's like looking at it with me. He says, I'll call you back. So, okay. He calls me back like 30 minutes later, and he's like, yeah, so looks like the engineers just sort of screwed up on that one. And I was like, oh?
Yeah, what do you mean?
Because the Crossfire was actually a Mercedes product. This is when Daimler and Chrysler were in bed together.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I'm not exactly sure, but the guys from Chrysler that were copying the diagrams from Mercedes somehow managed to screw up the wiring colors and pinouts on multiple connectors. So the guy just basically said good luck to me on the phone. And I was like, oh, okay.
You're like, that's not the option, man. That's
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out where this wiring harness goes to and where the module is. And it was just a nightmare. I talked to the customer, and basically we came to the conclusion that we'll just put a cutoff switch at the battery, because it was just sort of his Sunday summer car.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't really care. I don't want to spend a ton of money on this thing.
Yeah. And you're going to be countless hours chasing wires that you don't know where they go.
Exactly. Yeah. So
miserable. Yeah, but that's what I ended up telling this guy too. Was I was like, listen, I have a feeling like, because the thing is, the module that runs the key fob and the dash is the same module, and the module that runs the buttons at the back is a different module. I'm like, so that, okay, we know to go this way. And I was like, well, at this point, I'm probably just going to start chasing wires or something. Because the module sees them open and close, but it doesn't close it. So there's a communication issue somewhere between this module and that module, but it's not telling me that. So I said, I'm just going to start chasing wires. You were hitting the back. The module was in that corner.
Yep.
We're going to start there.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of like, I'm like, and you might as well just open your checkbook and I'll let you know when I'm done. And I'll do, I'm not trying to,
I always laugh at those guys that are like, well, can you give me an estimate? It's like, well, it's one of those things that like, I can give you an estimate, but really it's an unknown. Yeah, like I could have 30 minutes into this thing. I could have 5 hours into this thing.
I don't know. I could open up the back there and be like, oh, that's unplugged, or that's, broken. I can see it could be right there, 15 minutes. Yeah. Or you might have to leave your car a couple days. I don't know. Yeah. And he just, like I said, he was booked in for Monday. He never came back. So I don't know if he just kind of went, you know what? Not even worth it. I'll just hit the button. It'll be fine.
Could be one of those make it or break it. The guy trades it in for something else.
Brand new car. It's a 2023 with 16,000 kilometers on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I actually had a Chrysler Pacifica when they brought out the new body style, the Pacifica. Yeah. And it had this strange issue. There was a wife and a husband. The husband was in a wheelchair, unfortunately. And they would back this thing into their garage. And he said you'd pull up beside the tailgate in the garage, and the tailgate, after you close it, it would just open back up after like 20 seconds. Yeah. And it almost crushed me against the wall a couple times. And I'm like, holy. So yeah, we checked it out. And she would carry a fob and he would carry a fob because they'd go to the grocery store, whatever, come back out, and whoever was out there wanted to get into the car. And it was just a weird setup, because if you locked the vehicle but you left a key near the tailgate, it would open the tailgate up and then would just open by itself. Yeah. Yep.
So was there one of those like kick panels in the back?
There wasn't. So I thought that too. And it didn't have that. No. And I never did end up figuring out what was going on with it, because the guy ended up trading it in. They got so upset. They traded it in and went and bought something else. Yeah. But
and I don't know about Chrysler, but some Hyundais, like some of the Elantras and Sonatas, where the trunk You literally just have to walk up behind it and stand there for about 3 seconds.
Okay.
And then the trunk pops.
Right.
With the key fob in your pocket kind of thing. So you have to be within like 3 feet.
Right.
And you have to be there for like an extended period of time. And it just pops
Right.
the trunk. And it's just it's a hands-free thing. So they didn't have a kick plate. That's just how
Right.
it was designed.
Yeah.
That took me a minute to figure out. But there's a sensor in the back there. And it detects the key. And if it's not moving, it's not going away from the trunk. It just
Right.
goes.
That's cool.
It could be the same with the Pacifico, where it literally just sees it sitting there.
Yeah.
And thinks you're waiting.
They did bring out the kick panel sensors on those ones.
I think I'd prefer the kick panel over the auto, right?
Yeah.
Just in case.
Yeah. You're talking to somebody, it pops,
Yeah,
and then you
don't
walk
get-
away.
Yeah. Or you get crushed into a wall while you're in
Yeah.
your wheelchair. Right?
Yeah.
That would be perfect, right? Like, what could go wrong, right?
So my Lexus has a feature with the roll down, window roll down, so you can double click and hold,
Yeah.
and it'll roll down all the windows and open the sunroof.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just waiting for the day that I go to take a nap on the couch and I'm laying on my keys
Yeah.
and it's just pouring rain outside and it opens all your windows.
Yep, we had a guy, or it was a lady, maybe it was a couple, couldn't tell you. It was a few years ago, but Honda had the same feature. If you held the unlock button, it would roll the windows down, and if it would only start a crack, but if you kept holding it, it would go down another bit. It was like 2 inches at a time, kind of thing, until you
Right.
were all the way open. And this I want to say it was the lady that come in that day, and she's complaining that like every day I go into my apartment, right, and I come back out in the morning, windows are down, and then one day it like rained or it snowed or something like that, and the car was soaked.
Yeah.
She was very upset about this, and we're sitting there going, well, like, are you hitting the keys? She goes, no, the keys, like, they're not even on me. Blah 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 this, blah 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 that. It turns out their kid would play with the keys.
Oh, okay.
It took us forever, so we're sitting there going, okay, there's got to be something like a short somewhere. Like if you leave it for so long, it keeps dropping, and it's doing it all the time. Well, she would put the keys on the counter. Well, one day, and I think it was the husband that then saw it. The kid can reach the keys now, right? And
Yep.
kid couldn't reach the keys 6 months ago, right? And kid was running around playing with the keys, whatever. And then somebody would be like, oh no, don't play with the keys, and take the keys and put them back on the counter.
Right.
So they ended up hanging the keys up higher. Problem went away. And this lady, I don't mean to be that guy, but she was rude about it. Like she was upset that we couldn't figure out, because again, no codes, and like
Those are the
technically,
worst
like that is a
customers to deal
function
with.
that the car does come with, right? And chances are that this is user error, but how do
Yeah.
you say that to a customer who's already upset, right?
It's
They
a
don't wanna
fine
hear it.
line. Like you have to have those skills as an advisor just to be able to defuse the situation from people like that, because it doesn't take much for them to blow up, right?
No, it doesn't. Some of them, some people are great. The guy with the key fob last
Yeah.
week, he was fantastic. He's sitting there going like, "There's 2 computers in my tailgate." I'm like, "Yeah." He's just like, "That's crazy," and then he just like walked away. He was fine. That lady was very upset and quite rude. And how do you tell someone who's already upset that is this your fault? Like you know,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because
exactly.
she's certain it's the car's fault. She's certain it's the car's fault. There's something going on.
Yep. I had a truck once when I was working at Chrysler, and the guy says, I start my truck in the morning, I get driving on the highway, and it says after 7 minutes and 36 seconds, the radio shuts off and all the interior lights go dim.
Yeah.
And he had a time down to a T.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
Yeah,
So
that's very specific.
hop it into the truck, take it for a drive. Sure enough, exactly that. Radio shuts off, the lights go dim, and ended up finding the sonar sensor that's inside of the taillight assembly. On some of those models, the glue would let go in the taillight, and moisture and water would fill up the taillight, and it was shorting out the CAN network, taking down the radio.
That's crazy.
And a bunch of the interior stuff.
Yeah.
And I go up front and tell him, I'm like, yeah, so the radio, you're going to need a tail light, And he's like, what?
Are you stupid? You think I'm stupid? Because I know I don't need a tail light. It's the radio.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
That's
he was
awesome.
like, he was demanding though that we just replace the radio. He called in. He's like, I
he
need
wants
new
his
radio.
free
My
radio.
radio keeps dying.
Yeah.
And
you're like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
And I'm not crazy. I promise you, I'm not crazy. It's the tail light. I promise you.
Yeah.
Hyundai, I think it's mostly the Tucson's. I don't think I've seen it in anything else, but I'm not going to say it can't happen in anything else. The rear view camera, if you get moisture in there, which happens, you know what I mean? Like you get, like I just had to replace, I got a Tucson myself. I just had to replace the camera.
Yeah.
It's if it gets moisture in there and it gets enough moisture in there, it shorts out CAN lines. And we've had cars come in on hooks, no start, no power, no nothing, no lights, no nothing. They're just dead. And you go over and you look at the camera, and so the customer comes in thinking that their engine's fried or that they've got major electrical problems. They don't know what the problem is, but they know there's a big problem. And you're like, yeah, you need a camera. And they're like, what? You go in, you lift the tailgate up, you unplug the camera, you put the tailgate back down, car starts right up, drives away. They're like, why would the camera? And you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hooked to something that's hooked to something
It's
else.
magic,
It
all
was
right?
it was really angry. It's just moisture in the camera, and it will cripple the car.
Yep.
Cripple it.
It's crazy how
Yeah.
like just something that'll take down the network can cause that issue.
Yeah, it's all communications, just backfeeding on comm lines, and it just cripples the car because the backup camera is hooked to everything essentially. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like it goes through like your backup warning sensors, like the park aid sensors.
Yep.
Right? And the park aid sensors go through radars, and the radars go through brake assist, and and it just keeps going, and
All
then
tied
eventually
together.
the car just gets so confused and so upset, it's just like no more.
Yeah.
Over a little bit, and you'll look, and the screen's there, and it looks fine, and there's just like a haze.
Yeah.
Yep, that's your problem.
Yeah.
Go figure.
And that's something, as you have been working at Hyundai, that's something that you've learned now where you're like, they have an issue, you know that's where you're going to be
I go
checking.
look at the camera. You know how long it took me the first time? I was getting so upset. And
Yep.
then Joel, the foreman, he just comes over and he looks at the camera. He goes, unplug that, see if it works.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like I'm going to trust it. He's been there for 15 years or 14 years or something like that. So up it goes, unplug the camera, turn the car on, drove away.
Yeah. Crazy, man.
Yeah, and he's like, it took him a long time to figure that out too, right? But how do you know? How would you know when the car won't even power up
Yeah.
where your problem is?
So that's the thing with those CAN network issues is exactly that. You need to, on Chrysler vehicles, they had a bus bar.
Yeah.
And you would just take the kick panel off, you go start unplugging all those modules, which are just plugs on the bus bar, until your issue would go away.
Yeah, yeah.
And usually there was either an issue with that part of the network or the module was shorted out internally or whatever, right?
Yeah, it could be any number of problems, but at least you knew what system it was going after, right? I mean, like, there's nothing worse than having a bunch of lights on a car, scanning it, coming up with 16 codes from 12 different modules, and you're
all
like,
lost communication.
Where do I even start, right? I mean, like, I've
Yeah.
had to teach some of the apprentices there to really start sifting through the information, because if it's like, no comm, just ignore all these, because it's probably has nothing to do with those, but that system is tied to whatever your problem is, right? So you have to get through all these codes, you have to figure out which one's a little bit different than the others, and then you start chasing that, but hopefully you got the right one, right? Like,
crazy time that we are living in, for sure.
That's again a problem that's only been around for what, 5 years?
Yeah.
On your regular automotive, you know what I mean? Like maybe it's been around a little bit longer on your luxury brands, but as far as like Hondas and Hyundais go, that's a problem that's only been around since 2017.
Yeah.
We just didn't have that problem before. The CRV, the 2017 CRV, I remember the first one that came in with low battery voltage. It was, they left a light on or whatever. It didn't even kill the car. Car started up.
Right.
Every light on the dash. Right. And the customer had it. I remember the first one, they had it towed in because they're like, I turned on my car, every light is on the dash. It is lit up like a Christmas tree. Yeah. And we're like, right? Like it's a brand new model. Or like generation anyways. And they're like, can we drive it in? We're like, I don't know, right? Like this is all new to us. Like this is weird. So the guy had it towed in, scanned it, and it's got, I couldn't even tell you how many codes. Just boom, 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 all these codes. And it's got a handful of low voltage codes, but like, what does that have to do with anything, right? Like, I don't know. So we cleared all the codes to see what would come back. Nothing. We had charged up the battery, right? No codes. Turns out it was just low voltage that it just freaked out. And it wasn't, like I said, the car started. Yeah. It wasn't like the battery was completely fried. It was just lower than it should have been, and it lit that car up.
It's crazy how like a lot of these instrument panels and lights and all that stuff in the car, they're all LED now. Yeah. So it's tricky to see when you have a low battery. Sometimes it's so deceiving because you're like, well, the dash and everything's on, know, and it's meanwhile it's got like 6 volts.
Yeah, and you're like, okay.
Modules are just like barely hanging in there.
We had one that was driving around and with 6 volts on it. It was, so we had to boost it. And then it was rough, and it was, the lights were kind of dimming and whatnot, but it is driving around with who knows how many bad cells. And it's, you hook it to the multimeter and it's reading 6 volts with the alternator on it and everything. We're like, well, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Let's just start there, shall we? Yeah. It was just barely staying alive, but it was driving around like that.
Do you guys see a lot of wiring issues at Hyundai?
Not too many.
No.
The odd, like you see them, but not
once in a while.
Yeah, once in a while.
It's not like a common occurrence.
No. I got to think about the last time I had a wiring issue. The last time I think it was an ABS sensor, like a wheel speed sensor. Yeah. It was, pretty common stuff. Nothing that's out of the ordinary. Yep. Actually, another thing I got to give them credit for, not to be a company man too much here, but their actually a pretty well built car.
Yeah.
Aside from their 4 cylinders, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, like each manufacturer is going to have that run in of like, oh, you kind of screwed up on that.
Yeah, except for they've had bad 4 cylinders for 20 years.
Quite a long time.
They just keep going with it for some reason. But like, you know, you look back at like historically at Hyundais and stuff like that, and they were just, I wouldn't have worked on them 10 years ago. You know, you couldn't have made me because they were just not a nice car. And then you look at since like 2015, 2013 era, the quality of the vehicle started coming up, and I mean, we don't have that many problems. You know, it's just the standard stuff: ball joints, brakes, wear items, right? But and 4 cylinders. Do those a lot. Do too many of those.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I say, I just had one in that was like a couple months ago. Did oil changes for this woman for a while. Yeah. And just did an oil change. It was like a week later. She said, I went to go past somebody and the car just shut off. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, tow truck driver says it needs an alternator. I was like, okay.
That's possibly.
And then she was like, yeah, I brought it to the dealer and it needs an engine. I'm like,
okay.
Yep.
It's just like, cool. Like, what do you want me to do about it? It's a real problem.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know if they're literally just trying to like hold out until they can make EVs work, or if they can make EVs work.
Sort of make the jump.
You know, just like, hey, but how about we just ignore this problem until we can just move on to something entirely different? But I don't know how long that's going to be, and I don't know if that's even their solution. But I don't know why they aren't changing it.
Right.
Like I said, like we never see these things come in with, you know, brand name oil filters. We never see it.
Yeah.
We never see it. Like once in a blue moon. And, you know, who knows, that customer could have serviced with us once, but had been servicing somewhere else for, you know, years prior.
Right.
You know, so what are the odds that that was just a coincidence that they came to a Hyundai dealership once for their oil change and then the engine blew? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if it's too much flow or not enough flow or what the problem is. I don't know why they haven't fixed it yet.
Yeah. Maybe just, like you say, people are holding off on their oil changes. They should be getting them done sooner. What does Hyundai recommend for oil change intervals as far as kilometers?
6,000 to 8,000, depending on which model you have.
Right.
So, like I think the V6s, a lot of our V6s, I actually have a cheat sheet, so bear with me because I usually just look at it. But like the Palisade and a couple others, they want 6,000, but most are 8,000 kilometers.
Right. And is that on synthetic oil?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all synthetic. I mean, it's it's all synthetic now, 520 or 020. Synthetic, that's all they got.
I was pretty amazed when I worked at Chrysler. Actually, they still recommended to use conventional oil for the longest time.
Yeah.
Like a lot of their trucks and all that stuff still run 520 conventional.
Yeah, that's something that's pretty well in the past for anything import, as far as I know.
Yeah.
I mean, in my experience anyways, they pretty well got away from conventional entirely.
Yeah.
Hyundai did the same thing. Or sorry, Honda did the same thing when I was still there. They just got away from it.
Yep.
Which is all right. Not my problem. It's expensive, but like Hondas were going like 13,000 because they had that maintenance minder system in the car that would go on how your driving was, right? So if you did a lot of in town, you might get 6,000 kilometers out of an oil change. But if you did all highway, I think it was a max of 16,000 kilometers.
I know that's what Toyota went to.
Yeah.
Like when I left in 2019, they were just bringing out that 16,000 maintenance. You'd come in, it says make a date every 8. So you come in for a checkup and they would top up the oil if it needed to be. And you'd set tire pressures, check everything, wash your fluid, kick it.
Yeah. So like I'm sure you're paying, $150 for your oil change, but you're only doing it half as often.
Right.
That's not such a bad deal, really, at the end of the day. Everybody hated it because it is such an expensive oil change. But man, if you're only doing your oil change twice a year as opposed to 4 times.
Yeah. I honestly, personally, I don't think that oil changes should get stretched that long, but I know they say like it's in the science and research and oil's different now and they got additives and whatever.
Blah, 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 right?
Yeah. I do mine every 5,000 religiously.
I've got mine set to every 6. It's supposed to be every 8, but I've got it set to every 6.
Yeah, man, you know as well as I do that oil breaks down. Like you pull a valve cover off or look inside of an engine, it's been doing oil changes every 16 and like everything's stained.
Yeah, it's a different color.
For sure. It gets all gummed up.
Yeah, it's not good for them, but hey, who am I, right?
Yeah.
I always tell people, like, they'll be sitting there going like, does it really need this? If you're talking about different services and stuff like that, services never hurt. Extra services never hurt.
Yep.
They've never hurt. You're not sure if your tranny fluid needs a service? Just do it.
Yeah.
Nothing gets me angrier than somebody who doesn't take care of their car and then when there's a problem gets mad about it.
Yeah.
That is on you.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like if you do regular services and you take care of your car, and then you have a problem. Oh, okay, yeah, that's fair. You know, you can be upset about that. Problems happen, but you know,
yeah,
I get that. But if you go 20,000 over your oil change and a full year later, and then your engine blows, and you get mad at me, at Hyundai, at anybody, no, that just drives me nuts because that is your fault. Extra services it just can't hurt. You know what I mean? Like they never have us to doing your oil change a little early.
Yeah, exactly. I was always told that you can do it early. Sometimes you can't do it late.
Yeah,
it's too late,
that's
right?
a good way of putting it, actually. I like that. I like that. And I'll use that next time because come on.
Yeah,
You know
exactly.
what I mean?
Yeah. Those Ioniq 6s, I haven't really seen one, but I heard they're a pretty neat car.
They're a very cool car.
It's like a hatchback sort of, or
it's yeah, kind of. It looks like a regular sedan, but then it's got the windshield, the rear windscreen comes up and everything with
right.
it. But to look at it, it looks like a sedan, but then it just does have that extra trunk space, right? Which is nice. They are really cool cars.
Is that a fully electric car?
Fully electric, yeah. The Ioniq 5 and the Ioniq 6 are fully electric.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, they're right up there with anything else that's like full EV. Like they're actually a nice car.
Right.
They're quick.
Yeah, I've heard they're a nice car.
They're nice. You should swing by some point because we got one of the 6s on the lot, and I think we got 2 of the 5s on the lot right now.
Hyundai's really made quite the drastic jump in the last 5 years, I would say.
Yeah.
I've really noticed that, they're just the way their cars look and everything. They're really pushing.
The quality is better. The prices have reflect that though too, right? I mean, like it used to be. You
remember you could buy an accent for
10 grand.
Yeah.
You cannot do that anymore with Hyundai.
No.
But the quality is there, right? So I mean, like the accents.
Those accents were junk.
They were awful. They're still rolling around though. Like we still get customers bringing in their accents.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. We probably got a half dozen regular customers still bringing in their accent that cost them $10,000.
That's wild, man.
Back in 2008 or whatever. It is insane. The fact that people keep up on them, they are junk.
Yeah.
They are not nice cars. They are not nice to drive. They're clunky. They're fuel efficient.
Yeah.
And they were cheap.
Yeah.
Right? So, if that's what you wanted, that's what you got. But you don't get that option anymore with Hyundai. But the quality has definitely come up. Like the interior and the ride on those things, they're nice. They're nice. I would take a Santa Fe over a CRV at this point, just in quality of ride and everything like that, interior technology. Yeah, I might have to replace an engine, but that's
it's something you roll the dice on, right?
Yeah. Well, and again, they warranty everything, and they comes with a rental. Yeah, part of your warranty coverage. So,
yep.
I wouldn't want to get stuck 6 hours away.
Yeah, that's true.
For a daily, for a commuter, yeah, absolutely. Right, like I'm driving the Tucson right now. Yes, it's just a commuter car. If that engine blows, I can limp it to the shop. I live 10 minutes from from work. So if I got to go 30 kilometers an hour down the side of the road in limp mode, so be it. I'll make it. It'll get there eventually, right? Yeah, it's just not. I don't know. So I'm just not worried about it. Sure, but we definitely have a second V8. We have a Palisade as well, which has got the V6, which don't have.
I really like those Palisades.
They're really nice. We got the 2023. It's just the base model. The preferred or essential or whatever it is.
Yep.
It's nice. It is really nice, but it's got the V6 in it. So if we're going anywhere with the family, we take the Palisade, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But for commuting to and
might
from
as
work,
well things like an Escalade.
Better.
I would say.
Yeah, they're nice. Like it's nice. You get some of the higher end ones, and they are fancy. They're nice interiors. They ride nice. They look good, right? Like we got. Ours isn't the black edition, but it's got the black grille on it and everything, and it's the midnight blue. Oh, okay. It's gorgeous. It's an absolutely gorgeous vehicle.
Did you guys have many issues when those Palisades first came out? Was there any known bugs with them?
The biggest one that I can give, actually I got two, and they're not crazy. The one that annoys me the most is the rear brakes. They undersize the rear brakes. It's a big vehicle, and they're rocking the Santa Fe rear brakes on them. The front brakes, there's no problems. The rear brakes, we're seeing them come in at 50,000 scrubbed off. Right. And I mean, you can service them. They're too small. They're too small. That and then the rear heater core. Just in the last 6 months, we've had 4 of them come in with the rear heater core leaking. They're easy to get to. They're covered under warranty.
That's nice that they're easy to get to.
Oh yeah. You can have them in and out in half an hour. The only problem is getting air back to them. It's a kind of a pain. You have to pinch off one of the lines to the front heater core to force air to the rear. Okay. And it takes a little longer, but that's not the customer's problem. That's my problem, right? But they corrode where they go through the floorboard into the wheel well.
That's exactly what happened on the Chrysler Caravans
The
and Town and Country.
Honda Odyssey with the AC lines. We
Yeah.
were doing AC lines yearly on cars for the Honda Odyssey because they would right where they went in through
Yep.
the wheel well, they would just.
It's always that one point.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, and they got a rubber grommet there for the Palisades.
Yeah.
Why it corrodes right there, I don't know. If it's just moisture that sticks up in there, I
Yeah.
wonder if it's actually debris that gets in there.
Right.
And then just with the rubber vibrating and it just cuts through it. Because I mean, these things they're like razor cuts.
Yeah.
Like they are flat, flush, and clean. So I wonder if it's actually debris that gets there, and then just over the course of whoever 2-3 years,
Yeah.
vibrations and sand,
Yep.
right, and it just cuts right through it.
It's crazy how such like a minuscule detail of the manufacturing process can really like snowball and cause an issue.
And I could be totally wrong on that, but something that maybe they could have kept it down a little bit, or just didn't put it through the wheel well. Maybe if it was out in the open a little bit better, where it could get washed off.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Do you guys have any new models that are coming out? Any top secret information?
No, not really.
No.
They've got the is it the Vision that they're working on?
Okay.
And it's actually a remake of the Pony, which is hilarious, and it looks awesome. If you ever get the chance to look at it.
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Is that the one that kind of looks like the DeLorean?
Yeah, it's that
Yeah.
one.
Are they actually going to make that?
It's in talks, anyways. That's the next.
I think that's a
big thing.
really cool looking car.
It is a very cool looking car. It really brings it back to like 80s, but futuristic 80s. And
Yeah,
it looks
it's like
really
modern
good.
retrofit.
Yeah, it looks really cool, and it's a knockoff of the Pony. It's kind of like a hats off to the original Hyundai, right?
I've never seen the Pony before.
It looks like the Vision, but not as cool.
So the guy that I was talking about with the Caravan transmission that I did safety for, he worked at Hyundai when they first came to Canada. He said he was like one of the first 50 employees.
Oh, shit.
He was doing computer programming for their inventory or whatever. But yeah, he was telling me about how he bought one of the first cars that they were building back in '86 or something like that.
They weren't great back then.
Yeah, that's what he said. He's like, it was just a garbage throwaway car.
But it was cheap and it was fuel efficient and it was kind of their break into the industry, right? Like, hey, if we get
it's not going to be perfect right from the get-go.
No, like it is what it is, right? And they made it work, and like I said, now they make a decent vehicle. I love my Tucson. I love it.
Yeah,
it's nice. It rides nice.
Yeah.
It's fuel efficient. It's comfortable. I got no problems with it, right?
Yeah. Like I say, Hyundai's come a long way.
They have come a long way. It's nice. It's nice to see. And like I said, like 10 years ago, I wouldn't have worked for them because I just wasn't going to work on something that I couldn't be like, hey, this is a decent vehicle.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of held on to that, right? But then when I switched over to Hyundai, I was a little nervous because I was like, they do look a lot nicer, but are they any better?
Yeah.
When I got into it, I was like, oh no, these are nice. Like I can deal with this. And then you just tell people like, hey, you're 4-cylinder, just maintain it, and you'll probably be fine.
Yeah.
But if it isn't fine, we're going to warranty it because we warranty everything. So don't worry about it, right?
Right.
So it is what it is.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. No, it's been good.
Cool.
Yeah.